If you were to master Python, you would obviously have to learn the fundamentals of Python. Before you move on to complex topics, you'd have to learn about data types, variables, and operators in Python. This brief tutorial will cover exactly that. Now, before we guys head off to the session, I'd like to inform that we have launched a completely free platform called as Great Learning Academy, where you have access to free courses such as AI, cloud, and digital marketing. You can check out the details in the description below. So let's start off by understanding what exactly are variables in Python. Now, when you work with any programming language, your first task needs to be to work with data, isn't it? So whatever programming language you're working with, you are essentially working with data. But the question over here is, how do you actually store the data that you work with? So let's say you're working at a company and you want to store the names of all of the employees. So we start off with taking 3 employee names. So let's say we have John, Sam, and Matt with us, and we'd have to store these names somewhere. So where can we store them? This is where a variable comes in. So you can consider a variable to be a temporary storage space. Now what we'll do is we'll take this string value. So this, what you see inside double quotes, is known as a string, and we'll take the string value and we will store this in this variable called as student. Either we can call the student or employee or whatever we want to. And this variable will have a particular address associated with it. And since this variable is a temporary storage space, the values which are stored inside it can be changed again and again. So initially, we are storing this value John inside this variable employee or student. Then after some time, we can go ahead and replace this value John with this value Sam. Similarly, after some time, we are changing this value of Sam with this value of Matt. And this is how variables work in Python. So now let's go to Jupyter Notebook and I'll give you a proper example of this. Here what I'll do is I'll create a variable called as var1. I'll give in this equal to symbol and I'll go ahead and store the value John inside this. Let me click on run. Now let me print out this print of var1 and let's see what will be the result. So we have successfully stored the value John inside var1 and we were able to print this out. And since var1 is a variable, it is a temporary storage space. So that is why we can change the value which is stored inside this. So now instead of John, I want to store the value Sam inside this. I'll click on run again. I'll use print and then I'll be printing out the value of var1. And as you guys see, initially we had John inside this. We were able to change this to Sam. Now again, after some time, I'll go ahead and change this value to Matt. Now let me print out var1 over here. Print of var1. And as you guys see, initially we had John, then we changed it to Sam. And finally, we have changed it to Matt. So that was a basic intro to variables. And now, another thing to be kept in mind is every variable has a data type associated with it. So when you're working with data, that data can be present in any format. So when you're working with numbers such as 10, 500, minus 1000, minus 323, these are called as integers. And when you work with decimal point numbers, so decimal point numbers such as 3.14, 15.97, minus 1.92, all of these would be floating point numbers. Then we have something called as Boolean values. So Boolean values are basically you have only 0 and 1, or you can also tag them as true and false. So you have only 2 values over here and those 2 values are true and false, or you can also tag them as 0 and 1. Then we have strings. So strings are something which you put in single quotes, double quotes or triple quotes. So these are the 4 main data types over here in Python. So let's go ahead and look at an example of each of these. And now I'm going to start off by creating an integer variable. So I'll name this integer variable as num1 and I'll store the value of 10 inside this. And just to see what is the data type of this, I will use the type method. And inside the type method, I'll be passing in num1. And as you guys see, this tells us that the data type of this particular variable is integer. Then I'll go ahead and pass in a floating point number or a decimal number. So I'll call this as, let's say, decimate, and in decimate maybe I'll store in the value of 3.14. Now let me go ahead and check the type of decimate. So inside this I'll pass in decimate, and when I click on run, you guys see that this is of floating type. Then we have the next data type, which is of Boolean. So here I will have maybe another variable called as log1, and inside log1 I will store in the value true. Let me hit run again, and then let me check the type of log1. So inside type I'll pass in the variable log1, and as you guys see, this tells us that this is of bool. Bool basically means this is of Boolean or logical type. And then we've got the character or string. So this time I'll have my variable as char1, and inside this I will store the name. Let's say I'll store the name Arjun over here. Then let me check the type of char1, and when I hit run, you see that this tells us that this is a string type variable. We also have another variable over here, or another data type over here, which is of complex type. So complex is basically a data type where you have a real part and an imaginary part. So let's say if I write something called as 3 plus 5j. So here 3 would be your real part and 5j would be your imaginary part. You would have learnt about complex numbers in your primary or in your secondary school. So normally in math, this j is represented as I. So you'd have something called as 3 plus 5i, where 3 would be your real part, 5 would be your imaginary part. So in Python, this I is represented with j instead of I. So now I'll go ahead and store this in a variable called as comp1. Now let me go ahead and check the type of this. So type of comp1, and I see that this is of complex type. So we have successfully understood what are variables, and we have also looked at the different data types of variable can have. Now we'll go ahead to the next concept in Python, which will be operators. And as the name suggests, operators help us to perform simple operations on this data. And we've got arithmetic operators, relational operators, and logical operators. So we'll start with the first set of operators, which are the arithmetic operators. Let me go ahead to this Jupyter notebook over here, and what I'll do is I will clear out everything which is present in the console. So this scissors which you see, if you click on this scissors symbol, you will be able to cut out all of these cells. Now let me add a comment. So what is a comment? Comment is something which is not executed by the Python interpreter, and you can add a comment with this hash symbol. So after this hash symbol, I am going ahead and writing arithmetic operators. I'll click on run, and as you see, this is not executed over here. So whenever you add a hash symbol over here, Python interpreter automatically recognizes whatever follows hash symbol as a comment. Now if I remove this hash symbol, and then if I click on run, you'd see that we get this error which tells us that this is invalid syntax, because if we don't add the hash symbol over here, then Python interpreter would consider these two actually as two separate variables. And since we have not declared any variable called as arithmetic or as operator, this is giving us this error. So I'll just go ahead and add this hash over here. Now after this, since we have to perform arithmetic operators, and arithmetic operators basically constitute of plus, we have plus, then we have minus, then we have multiplication, and then we have division. Now
I'll create two variables over here. I'll have first variable num1 and I'll store the value of 10 inside this. Then I'll have the second variable num2 and I'll go ahead and store the value of 20 inside this. Now after creating these two variables, let me perform the basic arithmetic operations. So I'll start off by adding num1 and num2. So I'll type num1 plus num2. And when I perform num1 plus num2, I get a result of 30. So basically, if you want to add two numbers, you have to use the plus symbol between those two operands. And since 10 is stored in num1, 20 is stored in num2, we get a result of 30. Then similarly, I'll go ahead and perform the subtraction operation. So here I'll have num1 minus num2. And when I type num1 minus num2, I get a result of minus 10 because 10 minus 20 is minus 10. Going ahead, I'll also perform multiplication. And to perform multiplication, I'd have to type num1 into num2. And when I have num1 into num2 over here, which is basically 10 into 20, I get a result of 200. Then we are only left with division. So to perform division, I'll have num1, then I'll use the forward slash symbol, which denotes division. Then I'll have the second operand over here, which is num2, and I'll click on run. And as you guys see, when we divide 10 with 20, we get a result of 0.5. So these were some basic arithmetic operations. Now we'll go ahead and work with relational operators. So I'll just add another comment over here and I'll add the comment as relational operators. And what are the relational operators? These help us to find the relationship between two operands. So we can understand if one operand or the value of one operand is less than the other operand, or maybe the value of one operand is greater than the other operand. So we will have less than symbol, greater than symbol, equal to symbol, and not equal to symbol. Now again, we will use the same variables num1 and num2. Let me just print out num1 and num2 over here for your sake. And as you guys see, we have 10 stored in num1 and 20 stored in num2. Now I want to check if the value in num1 is less than the value in num2. So I'll type num1, I'll use the less than symbol, then I'll type num2 over here, I'll click on run, and as you guys see, I get the result as true, which means that num1 is less than 20, which we get because 10 is obviously less than 20. Now, I want to check if the value in num1 is greater than the value in num2. And when I hit run, I get a false value because 10 is not greater than 20. Now going ahead, I want to check if the value in num1 is equal to the value in num2. So this, what you see, is the double equal to operator. You have to understand the difference between the double equal to operator and the single equal to operator. So this is the single equal to operator, and with the help of single equal to operator, we are assigning a value to a variable. But when we are using this double equal to operator, this helps us to understand if these two values, if the operand on the left hand side and the operand on the right hand side are equal to each other or not. And when I click on run, I get a false value because 10 is obviously not equal to 20. Then going ahead, I have the not equal to operator. So I'll have num1. So not equal to operator is represented like this. So I'll have exclamation mark, then I'll have the equal to symbol, then I'll have num2 over here. And I get a true result because 10 is obviously not equal to 20. So these were some of the relational operators. Going ahead, we'll work with logical operators. So I'll add a comment over here, which would be logical operators. And we have two logical operators, which are AND, OR. Let's start with AND. So AND is a logical operator which would give us a true result only when both of the operands are true. But OR is a logical operator which would give us a true result when either of the operand is true. So let's understand this in detail. So this time I will be creating two Boolean variables over here. I'll have log1, and in log1 I'll have the value true stored. Then I'll have log2, and in log2 I'll have the value false stored. So I have log1 and log2 over here. Now I'll perform the AND operator on both of these. So let me go ahead and type log1 and log2. And when I hit run, I get a false value because log1 is true, log2 is false. True and false will give us a false result. Now let me see what will happen when I have log2 and log1. Again I get a false result because false and true is also false. Now let me check log2 and log2. Log2 and log2 will also give me false because false and false is also false. And finally I'll check log1 and log1. Log1 and log1 will give me a true result because AND operator gives a true result only when both of the operands are true. Now we'll head on to the OR operator. So this time I'll have log1 or log2. Now true or false will give me a true result because OR will give me a true result when either of the operands is true. Then I'll have log2 or log1, and this again gives me a true result because false or true is again true. Then I'll have log1 or log2, and this again will, let me actually change this to log1 or log1, and this will give me a true result because true or true is also true. And finally we'll have log2 or log2, and this is the only case where we'll have a false result, which is false or false. So only in the case where both of your operands are false, that is when you will get a false result when you're working with the OR operator. So this was all about the different types of operators in Python.
This brings us to the end of this tutorial on data types, variables, and operators in Python. Now, before you guys sign off, I'd like to inform that we have launched a completely free learning platform called as Great Learning Academy, where you have access to free courses such as AI, cloud, and digital marketing. So thank you very much for attending this session and have a great learning ahead.